Hi, my name is Sam, a third-year medical student at NYU, and I'm also a pre-med coach at the Premed Consultants. Today we're going to talk about extracurriculars for pre-meds and specifically focus on 5 different categories: research, shadowing, clinical experience, volunteering, and leadership. So first we'll talk about research. There's 2 kinds of research that pre-meds could get involved with. This involves basic science research or clinical research. Both have their own pros and cons. So let's first start with basic science research. This is research that's scientific in the literal sense. It involves lab work at the bench, hands-on activities such as pipetting, running gels, things that you really think of when you hear the word research. All of this is great. However, there are some cons. Basic science research generally has a slow pace, which means low productivity in terms of posters and papers, which will end up being bullet points on your CV. It also has a high time commitment, which means your mentor might require you to spend a certain amount of hours every day or every week at the lab, and this could take away from things like studying. Clinical research is quite different. It mostly involves things like data collection, data and statistical analysis, and concerns things like medicine and public health more than science and biology. It uses the scientific method less than basic science research and will feel less like research. On the other hand, it has a lot of pros, like a fast pace and a lower time commitment. Clinical research could be done from home, and it also will allow you to be more productive in terms of posters and publications that will in turn become bullet points on your CV. At the end of the day, really try to choose something that is interesting to you, something that you would want to write about in an application or talk about in an interview. However, if possible, it would be great to get experience in both. The next topic we're going to cover is shadowing. Shadowing, in the most literal sense, is being a shadow to a physician. You follow the physician around and you get an experience of what their life is like day to day. You don't get hands-on experience when you're a shadow, and this makes it an important distinction from clinical experience, which we'll talk about next. However, being a shadow is important. It shows medical schools you know what you're getting yourself into. And being a shadow in a couple of specialties, it doesn't need to be 10 or 20 specialties, but maybe 2 or 3 specialties to kind of see what it's like being different kinds of doctors. Will really show medical schools that you are committed to this field. Next, we'll talk about clinical experience. So clinical experience, like I mentioned, is not shadowing. Clinical experience involves hands-on interactions with patients. And an important thing to note is that clinical experience is one of the most important extracurriculars for pre-meds. In fact, the data shows that a very small percentage of students that did not have clinical experience on their application actually gained admission into med school. So clinical experience could be done in a couple of ways. It could be done through paid positions or unpaid positions. A paid position could be like a medical assistant where you're directly interacting with patients. Maybe you're doing some phlebotomy or doing shots where you are truly hands-on with patients, and it could also be paid. An alternative is being a volunteer. For example, a volunteer either on a medical floor, on a surgical floor, or most commonly in the emergency department, where you're cleaning stretchers or bringing patients blankets or cups of water, stuff like that, but you are directly interacting with patients. Now, ER volunteer is a very common extracurricular for pre-meds, and it brings us into our next topic, which is volunteering. So volunteering experience is another really important extracurricular for pre-meds. A really important note here is that volunteering doesn't need to be medicine related. In fact, for some people that have a really medical CV, non-medical volunteering might actually look better to show that you're a well-rounded applicant. And this could involve things like working at a soup kitchen, or taking part in a food drive, or volunteering at a local summer camp. Things that show medical schools that you are willing to sacrifice your time for the good of others, and this does not need to be in a clinical setting. The last extracurricular we'll talk about is leadership positions. This is something that is often the hardest for pre-meds to get because of how hard it is to become the president of a club or just show the fact that you are a leader. However, it is an important quality that medical schools look for when they read applications. And I'll share some examples with how you could attain a leadership position, something that you can talk about on your application or in an interview. So the most bread and butter way is to join a club and kind of work your way through the ranks, eventually becoming the president or vice president of the club. If you go to a really big school, this might not be as feasible for you because of the competition. And the solution to that is starting your own club. And this might actually be better in a lot of ways. Starting your own club in a niche topic that could be related to medicine, something like sports medicine interest club or something like that, or not related to medicine and just speaks to your personality and something that you might talk about in your application. For example, like an artistic club or some kind of venture. This will give you the ability to be the founder and president of something that you started, and shows medical schools that you're not only a self-starter, but you're able to work with other people. Another avenue for attaining leadership positions is joining something like student government at your school. Being in student government gives you the ability to speak on behalf of other students, and could also potentially give you the ability to maybe push forward some kind of well-being or mental health concepts to your student body, and that's something that would look great on a medical school application. Being able to hit all 5 of these tenets will make you as competitive as you can possibly be in terms of soft, non-numeric requirements for applying to medical school. This means that MCAT and GPA aside, you'll look really great on an application, and this is what sets you apart when you compete with people that have very similar stats to you. I hope that was helpful.